Ohio State gets out of Champaign with a 34-16 win. Slow and steady wins the race for the turtle. They played for the Illibuk, which is a wooden turtle, and I feel like both of these teams at times played as if they were turtles. They played slow in this game. But listen, this is the video where we talk about everything. So, Stefan, I'm going to let you start on where you think we should start with what we saw in a 34-16 win over Illinois for Ohio State.
Yeah, I think you're right. This is a good tortoise and the hare situation because Illinois outgained Ohio State, but Ohio State won. So
Is that really how this finished?
yeah, Illinois ended up with 295 yards. I think Ohio State ended up with 270-ish. We're doing real stat checking in real time. It'd suck if I'm wrong. Let me talk about my first point while you do that. I'm gonna go bigger picture before I go small picture, and talk about the way Ohio State has kind of maybe not set the standard, but approached the standard this year. Ryan Day talked about how it felt like Ohio State let its foot off the gas at points, and they weren't too happy about that. And was that right?
290. You had 272 yards in this game? That's disgusting.
Yeah, it really just a weird game. And because of that reason, Ohio State kind of in the locker room didn't feel necessarily great about this win to the point where Ryan Day was like, you kind of had to remind them, like, this is a top 20 Big Ten road win. Like, you can be happy even if you didn't play at your best. And it's a reminder that a bunch of new guys were forced into not new guys to the program, but guys in bigger roles that didn't have big roles last year were forced to kind of adapt to the standard. And they've done that in a strong way. Ryan Day talked about postgame how it felt like a lot of guys who they were unsure about, stepping into new roles in the offseason have really matured, have kind of showed that they're capable of understanding the standard. And I think that's the scary part about Ohio State is Max Clare, who transferred from Purdue, is sitting there talking about, postgame how they felt like there's another gear to this team and to this offense and what they can do. C.J. Donaldson talking about how, the run game's good, could get better, and they feel like there's always this chase for perfection, even after getting a top 20 road win. That's a guy that was at West Virginia last year, right? Like, people have come into the program, whether it be transfers coming in, freshmen coming in, younger guys becoming, upperclassmen with bigger roles. You look at Caden Curry, Kenyatta Jackson, Arvell Reese, guys that we didn't know a ton about coming into this year, and now we're talking about them like all Big Ten, all American caliber players. Like, that is what this team is. All those questions we had coming into the year of what is this roster going to look like with 8 starters on each side of the ball leaving. What's that going to look like? It looks, I don't want to say that they're better than last year's team already, but it looks like a team that by the end of this year could maybe compare to last year's team, a team that won a national championship because of the way that they've approached this, the chase for perfection. And I just can't get out of my head. I think we talked about it on Buckeye Talk. Get that wherever you get podcasts. Like, there's just this glaring image in my head of the way Ryan Day and this team talk about the chase to get better, even after an 18-point win on the road against a top 20 team, and the way we've seen guys like Brian Kelly treat criticism or questions about where the team could get better even after a win. Like, there is a different standard, even for a team that has a lot of new. Kind of scary to think about when you see the way Ohio State has kind of manhandled everyone that they've played so far, because it felt like, I don't mean manhandle just in terms of scoreboard, like they had their way against Texas. That game was close, but like they were stronger on both lines of scrimmages against Texas, which is how you win games at this high of a level. Kind of scary to think about the mentality and the approach that a team that's 6-0 and coming off a national championship has.
I mean, they sort of manhandled Illinois. That's why I was shocked by the yardage total, because a lot of that came at the end of the game when Ohio State threw its backups and third stringers into the game, and Illinois started throwing the ball around. So all of a sudden, Ryan Day gets upset and yelling at coaches to put the starters back into the game. So that's what it's fake yardage. It's fake. Brett Bielema did a good job in that fourth quarter making this game look closer than it actually was. It was never close. Ohio State, Ryan Day said it, they controlled this game. They did control this game. I think for me, and I think fans who may be thinking like I'm thinking as a media member, is every single game so far, especially the road games and the quality opponent games, it feels like we get to halftime. It's like, what the heck are you doing? Smack this team around. Why is it only 10-0? Why is it only 7-3? Why is it only 20-3? When if you look at every other statistic on a box score, it says you should be up 35-0 right now. What are you doing, offense? And I think what's happened is, some of this is the mindset that we've had in college football for a long time, when we lived in a world where one loss and you're done, right? Whether it was when AP voters like myself voted on national champions, or the BCS era where one loss, and you're definitely not winning a national championship unless a bunch of things go your way. 4-team college football playoff where Ohio State loses in 2017, 2015, and 2018. They get left out of the field, right? They lose late in 21. They get left out of the field. 2022, they have to backdoor into the field, right? They lose to Michigan in 2023. You're left out of the field. Your season is done because you lost one game, and that's not true anymore. And that's not to say be okay with losing, but it means be okay with process. And I think Ohio State it's almost Joel Embiid, like, trusts their process. And it's an annoying process to watch play out. We're all frustrated with, why are you playing so much 12, 13, 14 personnel? Nate Roberts is playing fullback. They handed the ball off to Nate Roberts today. But it's a process. You're building something. And I think for the first time in college football, coaches who have NFL experience get to bring that to the college level, where the season in the NFL is this organic living thing where you're building on it. And the goal is to get to the playoff and be the best version of yourself when you get into the playoff. And if that means along the way you play in some games where maybe it's a little frustrating because you see them tinkering a little bit more than they would have in the past. They would have had to blow this team out years ago, right? Because it's style points. Style points are not necessarily as big of a thing. And so it's I can't do this for 6 more games where I go, oh, if you play like this, you're going to lose. Oh, if you do this, you're going to lose. This is how you lost to Michigan. It is. Still, there are some things they're going to have to do against Michigan. But it's the only game on the schedule I'm worried about. But if you look at it more from a state of, what if this is a process and they're building something, and it's, okay, what are they building towards? I think it'll make for a better viewing experience than right now, when it feels like the first 30 minutes you're frustrating, and then you get to the third quarter, you're like, thank you, JJ finally got the ball.
Which is kind of weird, because you would have thought that that'd be an easier thing to do with last year's team, right, the veterans you have. And that almost kind of felt like every game was do or die, but with a sense of, like, load management.
Yes.
This, like, isn't so much load management as it is, like, we're just going to try a ton of different things. I'm going to piggyback off that with my next point, this idea of the process. I think we saw today why Ohio State starts Lorenzo Styles at nickel, why they feel more comfortable with him as we're on a team that's had a lot of new, where you can put veterans. I think Ohio State's going to do, like we saw with Tegra, we're seeing it with Lorenzo, things of that nature. Because Devin Sanchez wasn't perfect today in his first big time. It was his first start, right? Like this is the first time he's really been tested to this limit, right? And being asked to do as much as he would do against Illinois. And it wasn't always perfect, right? Like there was receptions, whatever. But it's okay, because you have Lorenzo Styles when he comes back. And if he doesn't come back soon, next week against Wisconsin, you feel like you'll get a better version of Devin Sanchez than you did today. If he has to play a lot against Penn State, you feel like you have a better version of him by then than you do today. If he has to play a lot against Michigan, you feel like you have a better version than you did today. Ohio State's in a spot where they can do, so much on their defense and be successful, while at the same time having a guy like Devin Sanchez learn. You talked about Denzel. Well, when we were in the press box, you talked about Denzel Burke, his freshman year, and kind of what he was thrown into. Ohio State couldn't afford for Denzel to kind of learn on the spot. Now he did learn as he went along, and he got better and better and better. But he also had to be really damn good right away. Devin Sanchez is really damn good, but Ohio State can kind of do some things around him to let him grow and come along in the process, like you talked about. So if Lorenzo is healthy against Wisconsin, I think he's going to start. If Lorenzo's healthy the rest of the season, he's probably going to be the team starting nickelback, even though Jermaine Matthews did an awesome job moving around. Jermaine probably is going to be the defensive MVP if I were to take a guess. We'll see. Arvell Reese was pretty good, like usual.
Arvell Reese was throwing offensive linemen around like a rag doll.
Yeah, but I do think Jermaine Matthews was just amazing. So, like, you do have that option, but you can move Devin. You can take Devin Sanchez kind of along with his process, Aaron Scott along with his process. Give them opportunities when they have opportunities. Obviously, a situation like an injury calls for a bigger opportunity than, giving him dime packages against Texas. But you can bring him along on this process, and it's exciting, if not for 2025, then definitely for 2026, because Devin Sanchez is probably going to start for this team next year. Good. He just got experience starting on the road against a top 20 team that has some pretty decent receiver talent, right? Like, this is a good experience for Devin Sanchez, even if it wasn't always perfect. There's not a lot of teams that can afford to walk out of a road top 20 matchup and say, all right, that guy learned. Because that means you probably lost the game. If that guy struggled and you say, okay, well, he learned, you probably lost the game. Ohio State's not in that spot, and I think that's a good place to be. And for Devin Sanchez, this is a great opportunity.
See, I don't agree. I think he was fine. I think he looked like a true freshman playing on the road in the Big Ten, doing something he'd never been asked to do before.
At a really tough position to play as a freshman.
Right, and Jermaine Matthews was talking about that. It can be hard. You can get down on yourself. He had the passer interference call, and Jermaine was saying he got down on himself a little bit. The entire team is over there lifting him up because, again, Jeremiah Smith is not the bar at all. That is the outlier. What we're watching Devin Sanchez go through, that is the bar. Give him a role. He's a master in that role. He's been, I think when they have him in just that dime role, he's been really excellent in that role. Now, okay, injury happens. Now all of a sudden you're not just playing on dime downs and third and long situations. You're out there all the time. You're out there as long as there's three corners, you are out there, which means you're playing north of 45, north of 50 snaps in a game. This is a lot for a true freshman who was playing high school football 12 months ago, who's been on campus for 10 months. I thought it was a good step in the right direction for Devin Sanchez. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't elite. It wasn't bad. There are moments that Tim Walton's going to bring up on film and go, that was great. There are moments that Tim Walton's going to bring up on film where it's not so great, but we can work on that. But that's perfect. Illinois went at him the very first snap, and he had great coverage. They went at him other times. He had great coverage. They went at him other times, not so great coverage. But again, back to process. I don't think when I saw Devin Sanchez was going to start today, when we got the availability report, it wasn't that I thought he was going to come out here and he was going to look like Jalen Ramsey today. It's that thus begins the journey towards a future top 10 draft pick. That is Devin Sanchez, and I liked it so much. We didn't get an update on Edric Houston. They said no update there. Lorenzo Styles doesn't seem like it's going to be a long-term thing. Last thing.
Bo Jackson is fine, by the way. Ryan Day made it seem like if he had to come back into the game, he would have. I think the score kind of just dictated if he's got something going on, no need to risk making it worse.
Yeah. Are we worried about Ohio State in the red zone?
I'm worried about Ohio State's running game in the red zone because it's limiting the rest of its red zone offense. The running game has to get better.
Ryan Day was talking like they were moving guys and obviously they missed some blocks. And JJ's end around that probably should have been a touchdown. JJ's fine too. He came back into the game. I don't know what it is. I don't know, and he didn't seem to know what it is. Whether it was the running backs, maybe they're getting what it's blocked for. So if it's supposed to get 4, that's what they get and nothing more. He doesn't know if it's guys are not executing blocks. It feels like it's all of those things, but it's a different thing on every single snap, which is why on Monday that's what we're going to be bringing down is Ohio State's run game and whether they left no doubt, because I feel like that we have some doubts about Ohio State's run game. Not a new territory for Ohio State. They've had these problems in the past, but 614-350-3315. It's a 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. Ohio State 34-16. They improved to 6-0. Game 2 of 3 road trip games coming up. 3 out of 4 of this month we're going to be on the road. They beat Washington. They've beaten Illinois. And now we got to go to Wisconsin for one more of these before we get to stay home for a couple of weeks. I'm Steven. That's Stefan. See you guys later.